Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. They win the game 37-14. As I mentioned, back-to-back wins by a margin of 20+. That hasn't happened since 2021 when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. And kind of similar, right? Had an opportunity to get the ball early to start the game, and you had some methodical drives where you took the ball down the football field and scored points. I mean, the Bengals were just dominating time of possession to start the game, running double-digit plays, chewing clock. And, at the beginning of the game, it's not like they were having a lot of success running the football. I think we all knew Joe Burrow coming back. The run game was even kind of getting good with Flacco playing after being so horrid to start the season. But Chase Brown putting together another unbelievable year. We'll talk a little bit more about him, but it was, not easy work for Cincinnati early in the game, facing a lot of third downs. I believe they were 3 for 3 on those third downs on that opening drive before ultimately they scored a touchdown. And that's one thing about watching Joe Burrow that does look easy, is I talked about this on Off the Bench when you had Jake Browning out there, and even, to some degree Joe Flacco, but specifically with Browning, you're sitting there like, I don't believe this offense can get 3 yards on this play. Now you're sitting here early in the game, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. You're not batting an eye. You're going, yeah, Joe's going to figure it out. He's going to find the open guy, the check down if it's there. He's going to hit him. Jamari's going to give him a chance. T's going to give him a chance. Mike G, Yoshi, somebody. And that's kind of the way this offense has been clicking over the course of the past few weeks. They go down. They score points. The defense, they do a nice job in this game. Forcing some punts, forcing some 3-and-outs, getting the football back, applying some pressure, right? Again, you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's the Arizona Cardinals defense. One thing that a lot of people need to be cautious about is, remember last year, Cincinnati Bengals defense, that is the reason why the Bengals did not make the playoffs last year, is how bad their defense was. Same reason they're not making the playoffs again this year, because of the defense. What did the defense do at the tail end of last year? They put together solid performances against inferior competition, and more specifically, inferior quarterbacks there as well, and it resulted in some wins. Well, don't look now. They played Quinn Ewers, looked pretty good against Quinn Ewers, playing Jacoby Brissett, who I have a lot of respect for, but let's be honest, he's not a starter. He's just a high-end backup type of guy, and it's looked really good the past 2 weeks. But don't let that fool you from what we saw throughout the majority of this year for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. And credit to them, they've gradually improved. Even, when Flacco was there at the tail end of his kind of run as the starter, they were putting together some solid performances. And the game where you got blown out at home in the frigid temperatures against Baltimore, you lose that game, I believe, 24-0. The defense was good enough for you to be competitive in the game, and ultimately you were not competitive in the football game. But guys are putting together some plays. They're tackling better. They're applying some pressure on the quarterback. Al Golden's able to get a little bit more creative with what he's trying to do defensively, and it's resulting in some good football for Cincinnati. But we'll start kind of with the offense humming on all cylinders, right? And again, early in the game, it's not like they were busting these big runs, but you saw it more towards the end of the game. And you had after the at the end of the second quarter there, when you had that 3-play drive that results in a touchdown, you're running the football with Chase Brown, and you can't help but notice the lack of effort there for Arizona a little bit as they're trying to tackle Chase Brown. But this guy's an unbelievable football player, right? He brings the juice each and every play. What he can do out of the backfield has been tremendous, and we speculated that this could be one of those type of years for Chase Brown if Joe Burrow was out there. And that's one of my big takeaways with Joe Burrow, is his just ability to elevate the play of certain players around him. Chase Brown, after the first 2 weeks, he had got going with Jake Browning even for a second, but specifically with Joe Flacco, Chase Brown really started to get going. But it's no surprise that he takes off when Joe Burrow takes over as the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals once again. How about Andrei Iosivas, right? He's a guy that, came into the year as a 3. We're all like, yeah, we feel fine with him as a 3. Elsewhere in the league, he's probably a 4. But here in Cincinnati, he's a 3. And when he was with Jake Browning and Joe Flacco, didn't look good, right? Didn't look like a guy that you wanted out there on the football field for a lot of reps. Now, all of a sudden, Joe Burrow's back. All of a sudden, we get the Yoshi that we saw last year, and that's okay. He's just one of those players that needs an elite quarterback. Think about all the guys that rolled through New England with Tom Brady, right? All those no-name guys catching passes from him. He just had the ability to elevate other guys on his team. And I think somebody, Yoshi will go into the final year of his rookie deal next year, and then maybe you probably move off him. I think you can put multiple guys in that spot to have success with Joe Burrow being the quarterback. But I just thought Yoshi was great in the game yesterday. I think he had 4 catches, 6 targets, reliable. catching the football, especially with Joe Burrow. Third down guy, red zone guy. There's a good rapport between the two of them. And it's no surprise that Yoshivas has really taken steps in the right direction with Joe Burrow coming back. So those are two guys on this offense, by the way, two 2023 draft picks that we talked about on the show last week that really have gotten a lot better as the year has gone on. It's no surprise that that growth as far as their play has happened when Joe Burrow takes the field once again for Cincinnati at that quarterback position. Then Jamar, doing Jamar things. It was good to see him snap the drought. I honestly didn't even realize how long it had been since he had scored a touchdown. Reed Mouse was talking about it each and every game. He was betting on him to get in the end zone, and he finally was able to do it. Got in twice, obviously, from 2 Joe Burrow touchdown passes. But that first one, that's just Jamar brilliance. Right, Jamar Chase brilliance there on that first touchdown. Joe was talking about it after the game. The corner's playing off him there, so Joe takes the snap. It's like, I'll get it in his hands here immediately. Makes the first guy miss, hits the spin move on the second guy, extends, gets past the goal line and scores. That's just a special football player making a special play. That's why he's unbelievable. That's why he will go down as one of the best wide receivers to ever play this game, and certainly one of the best Cincinnati Bengals to ever play the game in franchise history there with his buddy Joe Burrow, of course, there as well. And the second touchdown from Jamar, I'm not quite sure what Arizona was doing, right? It's like they didn't guard him, right? It's like, that's the guy on the field. You might want to guard him. They were playing off him in coverage, and Joe Burrow immediately gets him the ball, and they score the touchdown. So lots of positive things happen offensively. Again, it needs to be said, Arizona, they're in shambles defensively, right? They've had injuries. Some of these teams, you talk about attrition all the time in this league. San Francisco's been able to navigate through it somehow, speaking to the brilliance of Kyle Shanahan. But, some teams, you just get banged up and you don't really have a chance. I don't think Arizona had a chance really going into the year, but you look at all the injuries that they have sustained to this point in the year. It's unbelievable. They have backups all over the place. You couple that with being a little bit disinterested. You couple that with, I don't know if they want to play for their head coach. Coach Gannon feels like this might be his last year as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and that's all worth noting. But at the same time, when you have the elite players that Cincinnati has on the offensive side, it really can get ugly when you're playing inferior competition. That's kind of a theme, right? This team, this organization is built on being a high-flying offense. For as a fan, which is a fan, makes it a heck of a lot of fun to watch them. But this is what should happen when the Bengals play inferior teams. They should eviscerate them. And that's what they did over the course of the past 2 weeks. They're still NFL teams, grown men making millions of dollars, playing for their families and should be playing for their pride as well, so they deserve credit for getting these big-time wins. But this is what it should look like. Right? People nationally look at this and go, man, the Bengals, they're kind of in the same category as these teams that they're beating the crud out of. Maybe they're, actually a solid football team here at this point. This is what should happen, right? We all know that the Bengals have a lot more talent than 5-6 wins. They have a heck of a lot more talent than that. And they're finally showing it, but unfortunately, it's a little bit too little, too late. But offensively, it was amazing. Right, to see what they were able to do. Again, the thing about Joe Burrow, and he's the favorite player that I've ever watched in my lifetime, watching him operate, what he does, he just makes things look easy. He tricks you into thinking that, anybody can run this offense. Anybody can run Zach Taylor's offense with these weapons. And then you have to go to Jake Browning for a few weeks and go, not just anybody can run this offense, right? The rhythm in which he plays with, the accuracy, obviously, of him throwing the football, but he's so quick through his progression, and he doesn't second guess and say, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this. This guy's open, but I don't want to get him the ball. That's something Josh Allen does, and I noticed that in the game yesterday against Philadelphia where he gets the ball, and there's a guy open. He looks at him. He knows he's open, but he gets a little bit greedy. He says, you know what, I want to go down the field a little bit more. Joe Burrow doesn't do that. If his first guy's open, he gets him the football, right? And that's something that seems common sense to us, but people across the league struggle with it. Nobody's better at it than Joe Burrow, right? And that's something we've heard Jamar talk about where he's like, yeah, when Burrow's playing quarterback, I know where the football is going based on the coverage. When Joe Flacco's playing quarterback, I don't always know because sometimes he's just throwing it to me, right? Joe Burrow does a phenomenal job reading things out, getting the ball to his playmakers in space. And when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and you couple that with an elite back out of the backfield and Chase Brown, get the screen game going, you really are unstoppable. Couple that in with the mobility of Joe Burrow, his ability to extend, make plays, off-script stuff. It's pretty dynamic. And you got a guy in Gesicki who's a heck of a player and a guy in Yoshi who's good enough in your system to go out there and have a lot of success on the football field. So frustrating, kind of similar vibe for me after the Dolphin game. Gauging kind of where everybody else is at. I feel like more people are more positive after this game than the Miami game. I've said this multiple times on the show. I'm not worried about, draft pick or whatever until the final game of the year. Like now that Bengals have one more game left, I will look and we'll discuss it on the show throughout the week. The results of, okay, if Cincinnati wins, where are they going to be picking? If they lose, where are they going to be picking? Right? I don't really worry about that till the end of the year. Right, and Reed brought up this point on Off the Bench. These 2 wins haven't cost them drastically in the draft, right? It's not like they're going to be picking in the 20s. That's not going to be happening. They're still going to be in the top half of the draft, regardless of what happens here throughout the stretch. Now, if you sit there and Caleb Downs goes 1 pick ahead of you in the draft, are you going to be a little bit frustrated? Sure, but at the end of the day, I don't think it would be worth losing these games to get a player that you want in the National Football League draft. I really don't. Right? Think about how negative things were around this team. Think about the national media just dragging them through the mud. The fans, right, putting up a billboard saying, fire Zach, fire Duke, save Joe Burrow. Right? Well, we don't really have that anymore. Right? As you win some games here down the stretch, I get people are still ticked off. I get the season is still an overwhelming failure with how things turned out. But winning always outdoes losing, right? And that should be pretty obvious to people out there. For whatever reason, sometimes it is not. But would you have rather lost these games to get a better pick with an organization that struggles making the draft picks to begin with? Right? I don't think that would be worth losing games, losing a locker room, getting fans more upset, getting Joe Burrow more in his head or ticked off or depressed or whatever adjective you want to use. These wins have been positive. Are they meaningless? I don't entirely disagree with that. If you want to say these wins mean absolutely nothing, on paper they do. Right, as far as getting to the playoffs, doesn't mean anything. You're eliminated. You're not going to the playoffs. Right, but for the psyche of the players, the psyche of the coaches, the vibe around the organization, it's positive to win these games. And at least show that, this is what we paid for. This is what we built as far as our identity of our team, was to go out here, be a high-flying offense, score a lot of points, and just play competent defense. Right? You've played bad teams the past 2 weeks. You've scored a lot of points, and you've played better on defense. Right? So that's some optimism that things could go your way in 2026 and beyond. This notion that you're going to build momentum going into next year, that's ridiculous. That's outlandish. All right? That is months away. It's going to be a whole different team, whole different schedule, maybe some different coaches there as well. It's going to be completely different. So I'm not buying into, let's build momentum into next year. It doesn't work like that. You're eliminated, but you can still bank some positive reps, pick up some wins, understand what that feeling is like, and have guys on your team play winning football. Because a lot of these guys defensively, they don't know what it's like. Now all of a sudden it's like, this is what it feels like. This is what it looks like to go out here and play good enough on this side of the ball to allow our offense to carry us to victory. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it is positive. Joe apparently is going to play against Cleveland. I'm not, I was a pro-Joe guy, pro-Joe playing guy this whole time, regardless of where you're at in the postseason, right? And I think clearly, that has worked out, right? It's getting Joe Burrow back, playing good football offensively. He's gotten a little bit nicked up. I'm sure he's going to take shots on Sunday against Cleveland, but the consensus here is, the people out there that were saying that he shouldn't play, well, I guess he could get hurt against Cleveland, and maybe it's a different discussion, but overwhelmingly positive that Joe Burrow has been out there for this team. That remains very obvious to all of us out there. Now, I've been open, and I've said this before on the show, I'd sit him down against Cleveland. I would totally sit him down against Cleveland. He came back. He played good football. You got wins. You got positive momentum. You got Myles Garrett on the other side, right? There's a precedent in place that guys sit the final week of the year. You're going to see other teams do it. Zach didn't leave any wiggle room. He's like, they're playing, so there's no use of me kind of going on and on here. I'm not up in arms about it. I'm not ticked off about it. I'm just saying that is what I would do. I would sit him down for this last game and say, we'll see you in 2026. That's not what's going to happen, right? He's going to go out there. He's going to start the game. He's going to play against Cleveland. That game's always a violent, physical game. It's going to be. Hopefully he gets out of it healthy enough, right? No serious injuries after the game, but the plan is for him to play. And hopefully it can result in another win for Cincinnati. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, and we kind of turn the page and start talking draft here on the show. But Zach, after the game, he talked, and there was little wiggle room, no wiggle room at all. He's like, yeah, he's going to play. So I think it's safe to say that the starters are going to be out there against the Cleveland Browns. Defensively, this is as we kind of shift our conversation here to how the defensive side of the ball played. It was nice to see them, play solid without necessarily having to rely on turnovers. Turnovers is something that they always preach Every NFL team does, every football team does, but I always feel like there's an even more enhanced level of importance for Cincinnati as it relates to their defense turning the ball over. So it was positive to see them, win a game, not dominate a game, but really take control of the game without just getting a wave of a ton of turnovers, right? I thought from a pass rush perspective, it was positive for what we saw in the game. Joseph Osai has cost himself some money here being unavailable for his team. Put together the best year of his career, no doubt, but he's missed some time here at the end, and the Bengals are still producing enough as far as rushing the passer. So I would not anticipate, I wouldn't have brought him back this year. I've said it a million times on the show, but Joseph Osai, appreciate the services. Enjoy your next contract. Again, I think he's cost himself some money a little bit here with his inability to be on the field the past few weeks, being unavailable for the team. But he's made himself some good money, and I think he'll get a sizable contract somewhere else. But I move off him, right? Myles Murphy, it's crazy that we're in this spot. It's shocking, to be honest with you, that we're in this spot with Myles Murphy because, what were we saying? I was totally out on Myles Murphy. Hand up accountability. I was wrong, and a lot of you people out there were wrong with me there as well. At the beginning of the year, I was like, bust, done, no chance. Does he look like a first-round pick necessarily? I'm not going to get carried away. I'm not going to say he's a star. I'm not going to say he's a Pro Bowler. Looks like a starter in the NFL. Looks like a 2 at worst, right? Can he be the second-best edge rusher on a team that wins the Super Bowl? Absolutely. Could he maybe be the best edge rusher on a team that wins the Super Bowl? I guess now we have to entertain that as a possibility. I'm not going to get carried away too much, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's Myles Murphy. He's around the football. He's getting another sack. Right, he's making a play behind the line of scrimmage on the linebacker. Oh, he's playing a lot faster. Oh, he's playing a lot quicker with a lot more confidence as well. And that carried over. You saw it in the Miami game, and you saw it again in the Arizona game. Positive. Very, very positive. And you can begin to have the conversation of, what do you do with his fifth-year options? That's something you pick up going forward. We'll see. We'll continue to have those conversations. But he's going to be back on the team next year. He's going to be a starter, and ultimately that's positive for the Cincinnati Bengals. Shamar Stewart, he got his first career sack. Got that monkey off his back. It was kind of in garbage time. I'm not really taking too much into that. I've been out on Shamar Stewart. I've been out early on Shamar Stewart. And to be clear, I'm still out on Shamar Stewart. But he's going to be on this team next year. He just picked him in the first round. Zach has nothing but good things to say about him. Granted, Zach understands he's a first-round pick, so he can't be out on him here at this point. I'm out on him, but, positive. Played a little bit better, right, in the game. Got to give him some credit for that. I think he can be really good against the run, right? And if he can couple that in with some, ability to rush the quarterback, I think he could turn into a solid player. I'm not ready to say that for Shamar Stewart. I need to see a heck of a lot more. But I do think it's noteworthy that, as he's gotten a little bit healthier here, and again, Zach said this to no fault of his own, he hasn't been as available as the Bengals and certainly he would like, but he's gotten a little bit more healthy here, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you see him out there, right? Usually he'd be out there, and you're like, where is this guy at? He's on the ground somewhere. Now he's out there, he's doing some positive things. TJ Slayton, I was excited about him coming into the year. I still view that position as a failure, to be completely honest with you, with TJ Slayton, but he got a sack there from the interior. That was good to see. And the Bengals are stopping the run more. Again, you're going against DeMarcado and these guys on Arizona. Achane, of course, last week, one a great player in this league, still had a solid game, but you contained him. And then you were able to build a lead, and they kind of had to get away from it. But Joe talked about this after the game there as well. And when you stop the run in this league, that gives you an opportunity on third down. And third down's really hard. It's really, really hard. Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense make it look pretty easy, but third down is really, really hard in this league. The Bengals early in the year were faced defensively with all these 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, and they weren't getting off the field. Now all of a sudden they're faced with some 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9s. It's a lot more difficult for the opposition, and the Bengals are getting off the field. Several 3-and-outs in the ballgame yesterday, and that was really, really positive. So I've been hard on TJ Slayton. I think I just expected him coming from Green Bay to be a little bit better than he was, or than that the position had been for Cincinnati over the past couple of years, which, side tangent, Sheldon Rankin starts for the Houston Texans, and that's just got to be incredibly frustrating if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, because he starts and he's a pivotal player on the best defense in the National Football League. So that drives you a little bit crazy. Obviously, he didn't do anything with Cincinnati. He had the serious illness, lost a bunch of weight. But that's disappointing that things certainly turned out the way they did with him. But I had some optimism with TJ Slayton. He's played better here of late, along with the rest of the defense. But not good enough, right? Not good enough, and that's still a position that needs to be addressed. BJ's played a little bit better. Again, it's not enough for me. Not enough. Is he going to be back? He's going to be under contract. I don't know if that's, a reliable guy to hold down your interior pass rush, but those guys are playing better of recent. And you're stopping the run, and that gives you a chance throughout the rest of your defense, and they've been playing well off of that. Linebackers. This continues to be a serious issue for this team. And we've talked about this a little bit. When you look at we did a segment on this last week. When you look at the 2023 draft class, now all of a sudden that Myles Murphy looks like a competent starter and a competent football player. You start to look at that draft class and you go, oh, DJ Turner, he's a lockdown guy, certainly an extension candidate for Cincinnati. Jordan Battle, well, he's starting and he's been okay, right? He's been okay. Hasn't been solid, but he's been okay, right? Charlie Jones can't get on the field as a receiver, but if you're a return specialist and you're bringing back a touchdown a year from a return position, that's a lot of value for your team, right? It wouldn't surprise me at all if after his rookie deal, and if he brings back another touchdown next year, or it's like, yeah, we'll give you a contract. We're not going to, pay you some ridiculous amount of money, but yeah, if you're scoring a touchdown a year for us on special teams, we'll take you. Chase Brown looks like a star. And Reed made this point off the bench. I think you could plug a lot of a lot of players in this league into the running back spot on the Cincinnati Bengals and see some success. But at the same time, I don't think you should disrespect what Chase Brown brings to the table, right? His ability out of the backfield, he's improved in pass pro, right? And he's not just some guy, coming out of Illinois. It's like, oh, this is a shifty guy that's going to be out on the edges. He'll run in between the tackles. He'll get downhill on you. He'll lower his shoulder on you. He'll run with some physicality there as well. The fascinating part about Chase Brown in the running back position is, do you pay a guy, right? Do you just draft another guy? When's he going to, fall off a cliff? This is what happens for these running backs. They look great, and then they fall off a cliff unless you're Christian McCaffrey. Then you just keep going. But for the most part, it gets pretty bad pretty quickly. How do you anticipate that with a running back, right? Like, do you give Chase Brown an extension this offseason? I don't know. That's one of the more fascinating topics, I think, this offseason is what do you do? Do you just kind of go into his final year and see if he does it again and then make a move contract-wise? Obviously, he's going to want to get paid, right, this offseason. We all know that. And is he going to hold out? He probably. That's not going to do anything for the Cincinnati Bengals. We obviously know that. But that's kind of a borderline fascinating thing, right? Obviously, we're all going to be focused on the defense, who we adding at linebacker, at safety, what have you. You extending Chase Brown this offseason? Could be a possibility. But he's been exceptional. He's been exceptional. And, again, we knew this would happen with Burrow out there, and to see it play out certainly is really, really good to see. But those linebackers, Barrett Carter, he had one good pass breakup on third down, but that one play where they scored their first touchdown, the Bengals, they go down and score, and, you force the 3-and-out initially there on defense, and you're like, okay, you're going to run away with this thing. And ultimately, they eventually ran away with the game, but mind you, there was a spot there where the Bengals scored, right, and then they scored a second touchdown and then missed the extra point by McPherson, and then all of a sudden, you have the horrible effort, laughable effort from the Bengals defense, and it's 13-7. And you're like, oh, this thing's not over yet, right? We've seen this team blow leads in the past. Obviously, the Jet game, different quarterback there, of course. But wouldn't have surprised you if Arizona found a way back in the game after that point. But ultimately, that did not happen. The effort, though, on that defensive play was just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Barrett Carter just didn't know what was going on. And he's just kind of running, jogging around over there and just not ready to hit somebody. We can talk longer about the linebackers here in a second, but that made no sense, right? And unfortunately, he's got a highlight tape or a low-light tape, I should say, of doing that kind of stuff this year for the Cincinnati Bengals since taking over as a starter. And then Geno Stone, what is he doing? And it's funny because when I look at this defense, and Jordan Battle also in that play was disinterested there as well, and those are kind of your three guys where it's like, that's kind of an issue. And one thing that I've noticed with this defense is early in the year, and, certainly the Jake Browning era as the starter here and the Joe Flacco era for the first part of it there as well, it was like it could have been any one of those 11 guys on defense just doing something ridiculous, showing some horrible effort, horrible technique, horrible eye discipline, whatever it is. It could have been anybody. And now it's like at this point of the year, well, it's either Geno Stone or Barrett Carter. Everybody else, yeah, do you have your moments where you have a bad rep? Sure. But for the most part, everyone else is playing solid football. And when something horrible happens, when something just devastating happens, it's either going to be Barrett Carter or Geno Stone. One of those two guys is really what kind of has been the takeaway for me, which is positive in the sense that everybody else is playing a little bit better, but negative in the sense that those guys have been out there for you all year and have stunk throughout the entirety of the year. I will never understand, looking back this year, and we say this a lot, but in fact, I don't know if we say it enough, how Geno Stone remains on the field for this team. The amount of snaps in which he has logged, the amount of games in which he has played, the amount of games in which he has started for this team. I will never understand. I will never understand how that is possible. I won't. Now, the Bengals shed a little bit of light into that at the end of this game because we've all been saying Tycen Anderson, we love him on special teams, right? All we hear about is he's a great practice player, brings the energy, tough dude. Why is he not given an opportunity there at that safety spot? You saw the Bengals allowed you to peek behind the curtain a little bit at the end of the game yesterday against Arizona, because Tycen Anderson had a few reps there at safety. It did not go well. He had a couple of missed tackles, and then when McBride finally scored, he was getting beat there on that play. Now, in fairness to him, you put a safety on Trey McBride. If you're not Kyle Hamilton, you're probably, or Nick Amon-Wari, who, of course, you could have picked for the Seattle Seahawks, probably not going to go well for you. Trey McBride's an unbelievable football player, but you saw Tycen Anderson get some opportunities late in that game, and it did not go well. So maybe that's why they have just kind of stuck with Geno Stone. But that should still make you scratch your head, right? Because the one thing that we knew was an issue going into this year was the safety position. We knew for a fact, all of us did, going into last year's offseason that safety room, you need some fixing. Whether you're drafting somebody, whether you're bringing somebody in, and the Bengals legitimately did nothing. They did not draft a guy at that safety spot. Nick Amon-Wari was there for the taking. How's he look for Seattle? He looks pretty incredible, right? Names out there on the free agent market that you could have brought in, veteran guys that maybe are well past their prime but can still help elevate that room from a discipline perspective, from a tackling perspective, and they were unable to do it. So it's the least surprising thing in the world that room is so bad, but it still makes you scratch your head because we all knew it was going to be this way, right? And we all tried to say it a million times last offseason. And the Bengals, of course, organizationally refused to address it. And the corner spot, it's been funny. The past couple of years, you've seen these guys kind of get benched for one another. I would move off of Cam Taylor-Britt. I would cut him, right? I would say, you know what, CTB, you had a solid year for us as a rookie, but it's just time to move on and head in a different direction, bring some new bodies to that room. The Bengals, since he got hurt, obviously their corners are playing really, really solid right now, and they found a home out there. I don't know. I truly don't know how DJ Turner has made such strides, right? This is a guy that couldn't even, be a starter, right, on this team, has gotten benched several times. That was a liability at times. I mean, in camp even. At camp, obviously you're guarding T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but all we were hearing at camp is, oh, yeah, there's a huge play on the offense. Well, who's in coverage? DJ Turner, right? I don't know how you get that much better, but he has. And when you have all the holes that Cincinnati has defensively, I think you have to look at him as a top-of-the-line extension candidate this offseason for Cincinnati. And then Dax Hill. He's not playing at the same level as DJ Turner, but Dax Hill was playing really good football. And that was kind of the Dax Hill game there for a while defensively, where it's like they were challenging him. They were going at him, Jacoby Brissett was, and he was making plays on the ball, right? And he was making tackles there as well. So, again, first-round pick, the expectation level is so high for a guy like that, and he definitely hasn't fulfilled it, but reliable starter on a team that can win a Super Bowl, absolutely. And they've asked him to do so much too, and credit to him, he's just taken every challenge and said, you know what, yeah, I'll do it. That's what the team needs. That's what I'm going to do. But clearly he has found a home at outside corner, right? He was drafted as a safety, brought in as a safety. That didn't go very well. They've asked him to play some nickel, some slot stuff. That didn't go great either. But you put him out there on the outside. You let him use his athleticism, his length there as well. And that's been really positive for Cincinnati. And, of course, they picked up the fifth-year option. He's under contract for next year. And I think, you make a decision with him going forward. But really, those two guys, and they've been able to stay healthy too, which is huge. And, we've talked about this a lot on the show where it's like, yeah, well, you lost two of your best players for the majority of the year, but you had a lot of other starters out there that have played a lot of games and a lot of snaps, right? DJ Turner got hurt last year. He was playing good right up to the injury. And Dax Hill, of course, was playing great up until his injury as well. You get both those guys playing the whole year, that's positive for you. Are you going to be able to count on that each and every year? No, somebody's going to get hurt. That's just the way it is. So unfortunate they haven't been able to capitalize, but you still feel good about those two guys going forward. And then speaking of the 2023 draft class, how about DJ Ivey? DJ Ivey is a guy that I've always really liked. 7th-round pick out of Miami in 2023. Was playing on special teams and was doing great things on special teams as a rookie and then blew up his knee. Came back, you were wondering how he was going to play. They don't trust him, and, he's not an every down corner, right? He is a third down specialist, but they've put him on tight ends recently, and that's really helped Cincinnati's defense, right? Because the tight end, as we know, have just exposed the Cincinnati Bengals throughout seemingly a lot of my life for several years. But certainly have this year as well. And they kind of found something a little bit here with Ivey going on the tight ends. And I think limiting McBride in this game was huge. And you look at the stats, he still ended with 10 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. A lot of that was in garbage time. But that was kind of the guy where it's like, well, if we're going to lose this game for the Cincinnati Bengals, it's going to be because McBride goes off. They thought they did a really nice job on Trey McBride throughout the majority of the game. And DJ Ivey was playing well on third down, getting matched up with him. 7th-round pick. Tall, lengthy corner, and he played really well in the game. And I think, again, you're not going to look at him as a guy that's one of your guys out there, but as far as a rotational guy, third down guy, absolutely that'll be beneficial for Cincinnati. But you saw more steps in the right direction defensively. Again, overarching takeaway is when something drastically bad happens on defense for this team, oftentimes now it's either Geno Stone or Barrett Carter. Right? Everybody else is making mistakes throughout the game, certainly, but when something horrible happens, it's usually one of those two guys. And again, I will never understand. I will never understand how Geno Stone was able to play so much for this team this year and last year, to be honest with you. They restructured his contract fine. Just an embarrassment, really, for him. And credit to him, he shows up and continues to work. I can't imagine what he's going through off the field as far as, you really, if you're a player in the NFL or any professional sport and you're not playing well, you really got to just put the blinders on, tune everything out, and go. Because it's loud for Geno Stone. I can't really remember it being louder for any other player. Certainly Barrett Carter, pretty loud for him, but he's a rookie here at this point. So credit to him for persevering and continuing to play and continuing to allegedly give it all he has. But that has been just a disaster. Just a disaster for the Cincinnati Bengals in this kind of whole Geno Stone experiment. But Bengals, another win, 37-14. Positive that you're winning games. It's always better to win games than lose games, right? We'll monitor the draft pick stuff as we continue here. But Joe Burrow brilliance again in the game. Nothing too special, but then again, that's kind of what makes him special, right? Is his ability to make it look easy, his ability to take what the defense gives him, make the plays, get it to his playmakers in space, and he's just kind of orchestrating the offense right now. Not doing crazy stuff, but just keeping them on schedule, orchestrating the offense, and leading them to some serious points. And, there's still those moments, and we haven't really touched on this, where it's like, Joe, I understand what is happening here. He took the first sack. I haven't mentioned P. Ryan's name. Thought P. Ryan has been great this year. Samaje P. Ryan has been excellent for the Cincinnati Bengals. And got to give Duke Tobin some credit for bringing him back because it's been awesome. But there was one play in protection on second down where his knee kind of buckled. He left the game. I thought it was going to be a serious injury, honestly, when it happened. Ultimately ended up coming back later in the game. But he kind of got beat on a protection, and then Joe Burrow gets kind of clobbered there. That was on second down, and then Joe Burrow takes another sack on third down. It's like, you have to understand, the Bengals had a lead at that point. I understand they were trying to add to it, but taking back-to-back sacks, you can't be doing that if you're Joe Burrow, especially in a situation where you're not losing the game, you're winning the game, right? Get rid of the football. Don't take hits like that. Looked like he grimaced a little bit, which obviously we all freak out when that happens. That's going to continue to happen throughout the rest of his career, just kind of the position we're in. But he can't be doing that, right? The first one was on P. Ryan. The second one, get rid of the football. Takes a bad sack, and, they drew up a screen on third down, and then McPherson comes out and hits a 57-yarder, so it all worked out. But just that level of punishment, certainly don't want to see that next weekend against Myles Garrett. Because if he hits you, you always pop right back up after Myles Garrett hits you. So we'll see. But that was the one knock I had on Joe's performance, where it's like taking that second sack, back-to-back sacks. What are you doing? Throw the football away and, live to see another day, especially when you have a lead, especially in a situation in which you find yourself, right? If you're making a postseason run here, okay, it's a little bit different. But understand the situation, understand your importance to this team, and do a bit of a better job protecting yourself. But Burrow, brilliant in the game again. Run game, flourishing. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, incredible. Burrow's out there, so that also means Gesicki and Yoshi are incredible there as well. And it's a well-oiled machine on offense, and Zach Taylor's pulling all the right strings. And before we move on, we do have to talk about the Cody Ford play. And I can't remember ever a player that was universally disliked as much as Cody Ford was by this fan base to turning into being universally liked by the fan base overnight, legitimately overnight, and based off of one play there as well. It was unbelievable. They talked about it after the game with Fant, being banged up early in the week. They had to, run some different stuff, a heavier 12 personnel set for the Cincinnati Bengals, which, by the way, there was several times where they had 6 offensive linemen. You're seeing that a lot more. Rams really started doing it in the National Football League. Bengals, there were several times where Cody Ford was reported eligible. I think Lucas Patrick did once there as well. So good to see kind of the Bengals doing that. It's, copycat league, as everybody says, more teams doing that. Cincinnati did it there yesterday as well, had some success doing it. But, you see him line up out there, and you're like, oh, my goodness, that's a massive human being lined up wide. And then you see Joe take the snap and, give a little pump fake with his shoulders, and it's like, oh, the ball's going to him. And he catches the football. And, they said they repped it a couple of times in practice, but this wasn't like, oh, it was right to his chest and he could just kind of catch it. He had to catch the football. That was a hands catch by Cody Ford, and then he turns upfield. Right, and you're thinking like, oh, he'll catch it, fall down 4 yards, that's positive. And he says, screw that, I'm turning it upfield, and I'm breaking 3 tackles in the process, which it is funny. You kind of would expect more teams to try to do this in the National Football League. You see Bama, they did it early in the year with Caden Proctor, where it's like, well, if you got one of those big guys that you feel good about them catching the ball, if they hit running upfield, it's hard to take him down. That is a lot of weight. That is a massive human being. And Arizona kind of found out the hard way there as he made 3 guys miss. Just kind of a feel-good story, right? It's the end of the year. It was his birthday. Zach said he didn't even know it was his birthday. But just something fun like that. To keep everybody light, to keep the energy level high. And that's kind of what makes this game fun, right? Giving him an opportunity to make a play. It was funny that they gave it to Cody Ford. And it's funny how the perception, as I mentioned, completely has changed on Cody Ford. Like literally universally disliked, some of which for things that happen off the field, others of which him just not being a good offensive lineman, right? And all of a sudden he gets an opportunity with the ball in his hands, and everybody's like, oh, Cody Ford, the stadium's chanting his name, and it was incredible. And he showed off his athleticism there. That was not an easy catch, and then shaking the tackles and getting upfield, showing some speed there down the sideline there as well. That was pretty incredible. But this is a guy that, was brought back under contract and was like, okay, he's going to compete for the right guard spot, right? He's, known as the swing tackle, right? If somebody goes down, he comes in and plays tackle. But I think a lot of people thought, he'll come in here and compete for a starting guard spot. And that competition never got off the ground, right? It was like, oh, no, Lucas Patrick, he's going to be the starter here to start this year. And then we're going to bring in this guy off the street, Dalton Reisner, and he's going to play over him too. So this year has been a disaster for Cody Ford, and it started as a disaster in training camp. But clearly, the coaches like him, and he must be made of the right stuff and work really hard because they gave him a chance to catch the football, something all offensive linemen aspire to do. And credit to him, he made the play. Right, that was not an easy play to make for an offensive lineman to go out there and catch it. He wasn't wide open either. He was open, but, Burrow had to kind of throw it to the back shoulder a little bit there, and he caught it, turned upfield. It was a great play, and it was a heck of a lot of fun to see that there as well. Just a fun little wrinkle. Of course, we saw Sam Hubbard catch the touchdown last year. That was awesome. But, yeah, Cody Ford shows off a little athleticism and makes a play, and that was fun to see for the Cincinnati Bengals. They pull off another win, 37-14. You want to call it meaningless? I'm not going to sit here and entirely disagree with you. I think there's meaning to what it does from a psyche perspective, a mental perspective. a vibes perspective. But in the grand scheme of things, you're eliminated from playoffs, and it doesn't mean anything. We understand that. One more game for Cincinnati, and then we will officially turn our conversations into free agents, draft talk, and extension talk there as well for this football team.